Welcome back to watching JK Live, and we want us to continue with listening to the answers to some of the questions that have been raised. Christine, what's burning?
I think that's, I was listening to my friend from the informal sector and the issues of compliance. And I think one of the issues that we really need to deal as a country as well is the subject of tax morale. I mean, we are seeing we're always trying to increase the tax base. We need to ask ourselves a question. So why aren't people willing to pay the tax? Why is the tax morale low? Because that's the essence of the social contract. So even as we look at revenue mobilization, Sam, we cannot forget to look at the expenditure section. And Waziri, I'm hoping that one day we'll see an explainer like this one telling us how the money you have collected is being spent. Because once you're able to see where the money is going, we'll be able to build more trust with government. The cost of compliance in Kenya is very high. And cost of compliance is actually like a hidden tax because I have to pay people to account for that tax. In essence, from a business perspective, I'm looking at that as a tax measure. A very interesting sector, as you mentioned, is the informal sector. And sometimes I don't like to say that they don't pay taxes because they pay indirect taxes, they pay VAT, they pay many other taxes as well, is how do we roll out a program that they'll be able to understand, keep it easy, does not increase their cost of compliance, and speaks to what they do every other time. I'll give you a case where some of the costs have really gone up. So an issue is, for example, on withholding VAT. So we've been seeing a lot of appointments of withholding VAT agents. And I know withholding VAT was first introduced to capture data. So if I'm paying you VAT, I'll withhold some of that VAT and pay it to the government. But it was not supposed to stay for long. So when we look at the Tax Laws Amendment Bill and we're saying we're increasing the penalty for withholding VAT, I'm thinking, shouldn't we consider repealing it now that we have TE teams that provides the revenue and the government with more information about taxpayers? I mean, should we phase out some of this compliance? Because the compliance cost is something that will significantly affect businesses. Okay,
all right. So let's hear from the Commissioner General, because a few questions coming your side, especially there's someone who said that they close shop whenever they hear your agents are nearing. But also, do you feel there's a problem with predictability of taxes on what you have to change, especially with your systems? Are you okay?
Yeah, on the challenge of engaging MSME and informal sector, as asked by the gentleman. As KRA, we just, this past Friday, we just launched our 9th corporate plan, our 5-year strategy going forward. And the heart and core of our strategy is tax-based expansion. I think, as has been said here, the objective in terms of achieving equity and fairness, we need to expand our tax base and bring all Kenyans who are income earners into the tax base, and eventually, having that wide tax base will be able to reduce the burden on our individual selves or the respective contribution. So, as KRA, advancing our tax base expansion, we expressly focused on the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, the informal sector. And we are doing this through stakeholder engagement. We are engaging with the Isili business community, Nyamakima, avocado farmers, tea farmers, and seeking to develop solutions that speak directly to these specific value chains. Sam, I think there was an initial question.
So how do you engage them? Because if agents go to their shops and they're closing,
yes,
how do you invite them to your fora?
We are engaging them through their respective sector organizations, like the Juakali sector, for instance. We have a forum where we're engaging the Juakali sector, the Nyamakima traders. So it's a process, obviously. There has been a historical challenge, and we are walking that journey through this stakeholder engagement, building a relationship, looking at our taxpayers as clients, taking a bit of a corporate approach to understand their context. So it's a collaborative effort. And even from a technological perspective, as we were launching our our 9th corporate plan this past Friday. We also launched a new digital platform, which is called an enterprise API or an open API platform. And what that platform does is we are now publishing tools or interfaces that allow the market to pick these tools and customize. For instance, if it's a PIN checker, traditionally you've had to deal with a sophisticated entity or come directly to KRA to check a PIN, but now we're publishing these tools called the application programming interfaces, where young developers out there, a developer community, can take the tools and customize them and integrate them into an API, into an ERP, an enterprise resource planning for a small business, for instance. And the same applies to other tools that we'll be publishing. Okay. So basically democratizing the whole integration process with KRA away from the more sophisticated. So that is our new approach of engaging with the taxpayers, with the broader developer community, because we acknowledge that we don't have a monopoly of knowledge or capability. But by availing tools and working with the community, we'll be able to have customized solutions for the market that make tax administration simpler. And by making tax administration simpler, we believe that we'll be able to drive up voluntary compliance.
We'll check if they're prepared for that. But there's that question about the predictability of taxes and what has been changing. If there's a new policy, for instance, there's a new tax that has been instituted and it has to be enforced, what does it take for KRA to comply? From
a systems perspective, I think we are able to make the necessary adjustments. But that's besides the point. I think the main point is for taxpayers in terms of their business planning, predictability is, as a principle, is important. And I think that lies at the heart of the national tax policy. And I believe that as we walk this journey, we'll be looking to get to a point where we're able to...
The reason I'm asking that, you know, up until September 2024, there was a deduction called National Health Insurance Fund, which attracted insurance relief. Then 1st of October 2024, the government announces that SHIF, Social Health Insurance Fund, will be implemented. All of a sudden, human resource officers are looking for, are we going to allow for the insurance relief? What's going to happen? Explain to us what happened there and what the position is as you speak.
With respect to NHIF, we are not a collector of NHIF. I think that was collected by NHIF itself.
Yes, I'm talking about the insurance relief that was being applied on NHIF. Now you have Social Health Insurance Fund and different human resource offices.
I think we can support the system.
Sorry. First, let's understand from the Kenya Revenue Authority what the position is.
I think, as I mentioned, from a systems perspective, if we have to adjust our systems to accommodate any relief, that's our systems have the capability to do that. So that's not a challenge. Yes.
Sorry, just before we come in, Chairman, PS, what did you want to say, Dr.
Actually, I wanted to pick on the issue that Madam from KEPSA raised, and together with the Madam that is also on the panel, on the issue of expenditure. Because when we talk about tax...
Can we tie in on the question of NHF versus SHIF?
No, let me just, so that I don't lose focus of my thoughts. It's important that we look at tax vis-a-vis expenditure. And when you look at the journey we have traveled as a nation, you will see that before 2010, we were characterized by low deficits because we were, in a way, able to nearly balance expenditure and tax. But immediately we adopted a new constitution, expenditure pressures started. We got a bicameral parliament, a Senate, a parliament that has so many MPs, constitutional officers, and then an executive also that seemed to have expanded. And you can see clearly how expenditure grew so fast that revenues could not match the expenditure. and that gave way to taking debt. And I can tell you, by 2014, our debt was characterized, our current capacity as a nation for debt was characterized as strong. And our rating as possibility to have a debt distress was low. By 2018, we had come to moderate. By 2020, we were already characterized as high risk of debt default. And so it means that we have to reverse. Otherwise, if we go to the cliff where we have a default, you can imagine what it means to the economy. Okay. All the pension money that we have in the money market, in the capital markets will be gone, and the banks, even our savings that are there. So the reason why you see a lot of focus on revenue is because we need to do fiscal consolidation, meaning that we need to now move towards balancing our budget in the near term, such that what we raise, we are able to spend. And you can therefore see that we are working on non-tax revenue. There's a lot of effort on that, and you can see in the numbers. Yeah. We have also tax revenues that we are focusing on. Let me also say that over that 10-year period, from 2014, when we adopted the new constitution, tax as percent of GDP was around 18%. But by around 2021, when we entered the IMF program, our tax to GDP was 14%. So it means there was a tax gap of 4% already. And at the same time,
there's a bit of the factor of we rebased our economy in 2014, didn't we?
It could be about that, but the fact is the revenues were not matching expenditure.
Okay.
And the deficits were much, much higher. All right. So we are therefore saying we need to really move, and this is what I'm appealing to all Kenyans, that it's important that we really all look at all these issues. While we look at expenditure, while we focus on tax, the issue of expenditure. And I think to answer you, if you look at the budget policy statement that was there this year, we had a budget of 4.2 trillion, which came out of public participation. But we worked hard at the National Treasury and made sure we cut a whole 200 billion before submitting to Parliament. Whatever Parliament approved was 3.992 trillion, meaning it was already cut by 200 billion, and we will see evidence of what was cut.
Right.
And then with the failure to implement the finance bill, right, we lost 344 billion, which means we had to go back again to cut back. And that's why supplementary 1 has 3.81. We could not cut the budget by the equivalent of what we lost in the finance bill, meaning that we had to accommodate debt. That is why instead of 597 billion that we are targeted, we are now going to borrow around almost nearly 760 something. So the point is, this discussion should be around how do we make sure that as a nation we run an economy that is balanced in terms of budget.
PS, you've raised very important points about the cost of expanded executive parliament and counties, because the public wage bill is about 1 trillion shillings now? Or thereabout.
Actually, the whole CFS is around 1.3 trillion.
1.3 trillion.
Including debt. Interest payment alone in this budget is 1 trillion, with 750 billion being domestic interest and 260 being foreign. Fortunately, exchange rate has appreciated. So we are not likely to, we hope to get some savings out of the fact that the shilling per dollar will be lower in terms of debt repayment. And also the work the central bank is doing, backed up by the work we did in the Eurobond buyback, which resulted in a decline, in an appreciation of the exchange rate, plus monetary policy operations. You will see that central bank now is beginning to lower interest rates. And in the last 1 month, we have seen over 200 basis points of interest rates, which means that 750 billion is likely to be lower.
All right, PS. Yeah. You're saying important things, but quickly, so you might lose them. CS, there's that question I asked the Commissioner General here about NHF and SHIF.
I'm going to respond to it, and I wanted just also to mention that on Monday next week we are going to address you on state of the nation in terms of economy. So I know my PS is very passionate about these figures, about the debt, but on Monday we will now deal with state of the economy. Today, we wanted to deal with these tax measures. Right. Now, to answer you, I will read for you the provisions. Some in our proposal, listen to this. Clause 7 says that Section 15 of the Income Tax Act is amended in subsection 2 by inciting the following new paragraph immediately after paragraph AB. In the case of an employee, the amount deducted in accordance with Section 5(1)A of the Affordable Housing Act. AE, contributions made to the Social Health Insurance Fund in accordance with Section 27A and B of the Social Health Insurance Fund. That answers your question.
Right.
We are bringing amendments to make sure that the contributions that Kenyans make to SHIF or Social Health Insurance Fund is allowable for tax purposes.
So in short, just for the sake of understanding, if someone is getting a salary of 100,000 shillings,
yes,
you want before you tax, you deduct NSSF
yes.
of 2160, you deduct affordable housing levy
yes.
of 1,500, and you also deduct SHIF of 2,750, you tax the balance.
Correct. So what happens is you are earning your gross salary of 100,000. That amount, 2.75% goes to Social Health Insurance Fund. 1.5% goes to housing. You remove all that first before you start calculating pay as you earn. Okay. So it is going to give you a relief because that is what Kenyans have been crying for. That's why I'm asking, why can't we support these proposals? Because they are not harmful. Okay. They are helping give you more purchasing power at the end of the month.
All right, Chairman, I'll come back to you. Let's first hear some questions from panelists, starting with you.
Ms. Jeremy Ambassa.
Sorry, we will still start with the lady. Allow her.
I'm
Go ahead.
Karo Nyambura from the market. Market like toy market imechomeka mara mbili, last year na this year. Wenye wanafanya kazi hapo, ningeomba waziri kama KRA, mnawafanyia aje hao wenye biashara, juu biashara zao zilikufa na ni customers wenyu. Mnawashughulikia. Kuna njia ya kuwashughulikia? Haya, turudi kwa market ingine like wakulima market. Ni ile soko mzuri sana na iko na mpangilio mzuri sana ya kulipa tax. Kwa hiyo soko, customer wenyu, mnawajali vile wanakaa, vile wanafanya biashara. Biashara yao yani mahali wanauzia kama KRA ama kama waziri wa pesa. Unashughulika hawa watu wanafanya kazi aje? Juu mimi naonanga saa nyingine ni kama mnafunganga macho, mnasema wewe leta pesa. Wewe leta pesa.
Okay.
You don't care. Wewe unataka tu pesa.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Carol. Please pass the mic. No, one question per person. You asked two.
Okay, kwa majina yangu naitwa John Jenga. Nilikuwa nauliza hivi. Hii nyumba zinajengwa za serikali za kusaidia kwa watu kama sisi. Nakumbuka wakati zilijengwa pale Ngara boma yangu, mimi nililipa nyumba mwaka mzima kila siku 350 na mimi nilikuwa nikipiga viatu rangi. Nikajikomiti. Kuanzia leo hiyo serikali katoka ingine ikasema wanajenga nyumba tena. Mimi nakaa kule Madhale. Nilikuwa nauliza hivi. Kama sisi walemavu tukua town, hizi nyumba tutapata aje? Na kama tulilipa nyumba tukaenda Huduma Center tukaandikisha watoto, especially mtu kama mimi niko na watoto wengi sana, juu nilikuwa napata mapacha niko na watoto 12. Sasa nilikuwa nauliza hii nyumba nitaka Madhare baka nini? Nilikuwa naomba serikali, mtu kama nimelipa nyumba miaka mingi kule mabati, nyumba inachomeka. Sijapata nyumba pale Ngara, ilipatiwa Oria. Oria ndio wamejaa Ngara. Sasa nilikuwa nauliza sisi walemavu tutasaidika aje? Thank you.
Okay. Let's pass the mic. There's something you said that there is a bit unnerving. Sorry, there's the third person who is that lady. Please ask the question.
Okay, good evening, guys. My name is Jenna Kinyi from SME department. Mr. CS, you said that we need transparency on how tasks should be collected. Kindly, I'm just requesting you do the proper YY analysis and you come up with a root cause analysis why most of the people are evading tax evasions. Then my question goes to tax on digital transactions. How are you going to balance revenue collections with improvements in governance and service delivery, as well as its ability to effectively manage public resources. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Who was number 4? Yep.
Okay, thank you. My name is David Kingori from EY. I've had a few comments or questions around SMEs as well as the agricultural sector. I'll just give my understanding of the proposal. Under the Tax Procedures Amendment number 2 bill, there is a proposal here around ETIMS. ETIMS was introduced in 2023, and the Finance Act was enacted around July. There were certain clarifications in November. The regulations were published in March. There were proposals in the finance bill, all separate. Now we have another amendment bill, and I can give what it proposes. So one of the proposals is that as a purchaser of goods or services from a small business or an agricultural farmer, it is my responsibility to issue an invoice on their behalf. So if, for example, Citizen is working with a rider, it is Citizen's responsibility to invoice on behalf of Alex. What does this do? Ideally, you then find that it becomes very difficult to work with these small businesses or even some of the small farmers. So what taxpayers have resorted to do is actually look for bigger businesses that can be able to actually supply them. So as opposed to going to Alex, you actually go to Uber because they'll give you an ETIMS compliant invoice. So my question goes now to, I think, the chair of the departmental committee as well as the CS. How are these proposals in line with your bottom-up approach? Because clearly, these are things that are going to prejudice the businesses that are there. Secondly, even as you look at these small businesses, you have, it's aligned, but these small businesses, yes, you're giving a threshold of 1 million. How do I know that Alex makes 1 million? How am I able to ascertain that that is their annual turnover? So probably you could answer that so that at least it provides some clarity. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And then here, the lady at the front. Please pass the mic to her. Raise your hand.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Rose Maura. I chair the KEPSA Public Sector Finance Board. One of the biggest challenges that businesses are having is really just the ease of paying taxes. So I've heard Waziri say that one of the amendments here is to be able to offset overpayments against liabilities. But I can assure you that what will happen and what's happening at the moment is the minute you request for that offset, you get multiple audits to make sure that you never offset that overpayment. So I think my question is both to Waziri and also to the CG. I think your people are under so much pressure at KRA that even whatever has been legislated, they're not willing to do that. And it makes it very, very hard for businesses that actually want to pay taxes to even pay those taxes. The other issue is on legacy issues. I think just the other day, a lot of businesses were hit with legacy issues that are back to 10 years ago. And legacy issues arose when there was a changeover, from manual system to iTax. Those issues, it has been impossible to resolve those issues because nobody at KRA will take responsibility to resolve those issues. You keep on getting pushed from one person to the other. You provide copies of the manual documentation that supports that the tax was actually paid, but nobody is willing to take a decision on that. So they keep on, now they've been added to iTax. So we then go back to the whole process of trying to sort this out. So I think it's important, and it's been said here by so many people, that KRA needs to simplify the process of paying taxes to the government. We want to pay taxes, but you're making it so hard to us, and Christine has said it. It now becomes another tax because I have to go and hire multiple people to help me sort all this out. So I think it's really tax administration is a really critical area that we need to look at, even as we're looking at expanding that tax base and expanding the taxes that we're collecting. Thank you.
All right, the last two questions for now.
My name is CPA David Kingo, an economic consultant. So my question about on the better model. But the president tries to push that they want to enhance medium and small enterprises. But when you look at the digital space, where most of these businesses are coming through, and then you also tie it with tax and goods or services that have inelastic demand, that even if you tax, I must consume this particular product. So we're pushing digital space, for example, Uber Eats. So this is someone who is running through that particular platform to supply food in a digital space. So we hit that person with 3%. So this person is riding on a bike that is under Uber, right? So we hit again that transport services, we hit with 3%. Again, this person is running on accessible services because all these platforms run through internet. So remember, we are moving from 15% to 20%, even not wrong. So we have done 5 plus 3 plus 3 on one particular customer, one particular business owner. So we need to look at, from the economic perspective of the demand behavior of the digital space so that we don't tax so much, then we end up losing the tax base that we target to increase on the other end. Just thank you very much.
Okay, Davis?
Thank you. My question is to the CS. Your predecessor, plus KRA, really had an appetite to tax the churches and the faith-based organizations. And one of the regulations he signed off, the charitable organizations regulations, seemed to dilute the ruling in the Baptist, Thika Baptist, the High Court ruling. So I really want to hear your mind. What's your take? Should churches be taxed? Are prayers not enough? Churches are praying for the country. You're still coming for the money. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now, we have many answers to give, but I just want to take responses from one person, then you take a break and come back for the rest. Chairman, you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. The issues that have been raised is one of the things that is a bill that is proposed by the AG and is lying with the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on public participation. And this particular question gives us exact example. On digital service tax, for example, you have a rider who is selling food. So I cook from my apartment and then use that platform to deliver that food to the customer. Then there is someone who goes and establishes a shop and now is selling those foods to the public. Of course, the operational costs and the cost to the economy of that person who has a physical presence is higher than that of the service provider. We put those two people in the same room. They are saying, these are killing our business, tax them. Then the others are saying, we are creating employment, you should not touch us. And therefore, this is one of the beauty of these particular conversations that hopefully will make us have a good deliberations about this. Secondly, Sam, the regulations on e-teams, again, another challenge. The small businesses are saying, if you forced us to register on e-teams, if I'm selling avocados worth 1,000 shillings, how do I issue an e-teams compliance receipt? And then the buyer is saying that if you do not allow that person to issue me that receipt, then I'll go to buy from the big guys and leave these particular people. And therefore, these are some of the issues that these particular conversations are helping us arrive at the right decision. Lastly, Sam, we have emphasized on the need to look at expenditures. And the last discussion you and I had on Citizen, and that time Honorable John Buddy then was on the other side. It's good that now things have really changed. We said maybe National Treasury needs to link these revenue measures with the expenditures directly. I'll give you an example. We are facing some challenges with the new university funding model. Although it recognizes the needs of the students and is more student-centered than the previous model that university-centered, apart from the small complexity about allocation of various bands, the biggest challenge with that model is underfinancing. It is not the model itself. Because the help with the rationalization of budget following the rejection or reject, don't amend the finance bill, we had the HELB loan reduced by 19 billion. We had scholarships for students reduced by 10 billion. So therefore, the challenges we are facing with the new university phasing model is not just the change in model question, it is more about the reduction of that particular budget. So once now we are able to have this conversation about we link the revenues with the expenditures, and we have an open conversation that this is therefore the need why we need to generate our own resources for our own physical and autonomy, then we'll make great progress as a country.
Okay, all right. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll be getting responses to the other questions that have been raised. You're still watching JK Live from Daystar University. Welcome back. You're watching JK Live, and we're still at the Daystar University. There are proposed amendments to different laws: Business Laws Amendment Bill 2024, Tax Laws Amendment Bill 2024, Tax Procedures Amendment Bill 2024, and Public Finance Amendment Bill 2024. They are proposing a couple of changes, some affecting taxation, and the other four issues that I've mentioned. We'll be getting back to some more details about that. But there were questions that are addressing. There was a question on about markets, whether KRA is concerned with the working conditions, or the most important thing is to collect revenue.
Thank you, Sam. With respect to working conditions in the market, I think that's definitely beyond the purview of KRA. I believe it's something that the county government and to some extent national government will look into.
Okay. Yeah. Then there's someone who raised about the question about Bomayangu has been making contributions, has not received any offer for a house. I don't know who wants to take that.
Maybe I can only offer that I'll pick his details, and I'll engage my colleague PS Housing to make sure that his matter is addressed. So let's meet after this.
Okay, all right. There was another question about the many amendments that have been coming to, especially the question of e-teams, and that businesses are looking for bigger businesses to trade with because of the challenge of the invoicing process. I don't know who wants to take that. Commissioner, do you want to take that?
Commissioner can take.
Yeah, with respect to e-teams, we have been developing solutions that speak to different sectors and different sort of sizes of businesses. I think, as I mentioned prior, we have what I may call the traditional e-teams that are used by corporates, but we've also developed what's called a buyer-initiated invoice, and I believe that's what the question I was speaking to, where the buyer can initiate or can issue an invoice on behalf of the seller. But we've gone one step further, and to simplify the process, where we have a simplified invoice e-teams generating solution based on USSD, such that even so Mama Mboga or a small seller who's using a Mulikamwizi will still be able to generate an e-teams invoice. So we're working with all the varied clients, as I said before, to see what solutions we can avail to them that speak to their specific situations. Yes.
I don't know if the answer is satisfactory. You can look for the mic, we'll get back to that. But there was the other question from Maura here saying that there are legacy issues that are still affecting your authority, moving from manual to iTax, and your officials or your officers are quite under pressure to resolve some of these issues.
Yeah, the question was speaking to an exercise that was long overdue, that we have undertaken, and that was to do with the cleanup of data from a legacy system. And once we completed that process, the output of that process was then migrated into iTax. So sort of creating new liabilities or credits in taxpayers' ledgers. And as a result, that has precipitated quite a number of follow-on inquiries. We had given us a period of 6 months to engage with taxpayers to try and reconcile the issues that they have. We've put together a special team specifically to work with taxpayers to address their issues. We'll have to review, I think, listening to the questioner, I think to the extent that perhaps the team is not adequate in addressing all the incoming inquiries. That's something that we'll have to review and see whether we need to increase the capacity.
How about the question of settling overpayments versus liabilities?
Yes, on the issue of settling overpayments, I think as I stated, we've just launched our new strategic plan with the basic premise of simplifying taxation, simplifying tax administration, and facilitating our clients, and to the extent possible, seeing how we can use technology to do this facilitation. So with respect to offsets of overpayments, we are equally working to automate that process and to the extent possible sort of limit the need for human interaction, so that if you have an overpayment voucher, you can automatically through the system offset. So we are working to expedite the availability of that solution as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There was a question about churches and payment of taxes. Do you want to take that, Jose?
Simon, let me take advantage of this chance you have given me to answer to this question of churches to address something else which had been raised and which I think needs to be addressed. That is the question of expenditure management. And it didn't just come from the floor, but it also came from Christine here when she talked about she hopes that we are going to have an explainer for expenditure in the near future. First, Christine, I want to assure you that there is definitely going to be new management style and leadership style at the National Treasury. And so certain things that used not to happen will happen, including the explainer for tax proposals is coming up for the first time. But I want to say that there are steps that we have taken to make sure that we have managed expenditure. Because the reason why you find resistance in paying taxes from Kenyans, and it is growing by the day, is because there is a feeling in this country that we are misusing the taxes that we collect, that the resources that we are given by the people of Kenya get misused. So we must work and fix expenditure mismanagement. Prudence use of public resources is paramount. That is why my PS here is chairing a committee, and I've already approved money to roll out the e-procurement system end to end. We want to minimize interaction with procurement, human interaction with procurement process. Two, before even we go to the explainer, for the first time, this budget of 25-26 is going to be based on zero-based, not incremental as it has been. Every shilling you want to get from the National Treasury, all the MDS must justify every shilling that they will receive from us. That is a starting point before we even go to ensuring that the same is utilized effectively and efficiently. Pardon?
Have you started the process of zero-based budgeting?
Yes, the budget for this year is on zero-based budget, and I launched that at KICC not long ago. And if that is the budget for 25-26, so there is no excuse about it. It will be zero-based budget. We cannot keep on postponing things. We must have things happen. Now,
sorry, Waziri, sorry to disrupt your line of thinking, because there's a period in which you must present the budget policy statement, isn't it?
That is February, yes. By 15th of January, and it has to be concluded by February.
By 15th of February, that is the next few months.
Yeah.
So when you say zero-based budgeting, it's like every department has to come and say, we want to buy chairs, and this is the price. Then you check if that is justifiable. What are you talking about?
the culture of lumping, budgeting on budget lines must end. We must disaggregate our budget. You must demonstrate what is it. You will not just tell us furniture. You must come out and tell us how much and what are these furniture you are going to purchase and at what price, indicative price. That must come through the zero-based budget.
Okay.
And then the other issue, Sam, that I wanted to talk about is what was raised by my former chair of ISPAC, Rose. You talked, and you are right, that there is difficulty in offsetting these taxes because of your asked audit questions. I think much as it is a nuisance, we will move towards efficiency so that we eliminate some of these things. But again, with the system as it were, if you allowed offset without safeguards, then you would have a lot of tax leakages. You would have a lot of tax expenditure that you are not supposed to have because of the dishonesty, first of those who use this, who are given the responsibility, and even those who are claiming. Finally, I'm coming to your churches and faith-based organizations. Sam, I don't know whether you're aware, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist.
Good to know.
And we are very clear and strict about religious issues. And under my watch, I would not support any taxation of faith-based organizations in whichever way. However, we must be alive to certain factors, one of which is that presently, charitable organizations are not subjected to taxation, including even education institutions. But look at some of these education institutions, some charge you 1 million per term. And then we don't tax them. Yet we tax Mama Boga who is selling Boga in Gikomba. It is unfair. So if you are making money, if you are doing business, please pay the tax. If it is purely religious activity, if whatever you are doing is supporting religious activity and promotion of religious activities, then there is no need to pay taxes. But those who are involved in businesses, we must have a conversation. If you are involved in business, pay your fair share of tax. And that is what we call
That's interesting. Are you saying soon you might start to tax education institutions?
Pardon?
Are you saying soon you will start taxing education institutions?
No, that proposal has not come, but I'm just asking a question to Kenyans. We are on public participation, and I want to ask, if today I start a school and I'm charging 1 million, shouldn't I pay tax?
So, I mean, have you thought about it? What would that look like? Because if you add taxation, you're adding the amount of school fees that parents will have to pay.
No, but you see, Sam, we are not talking about public education here.
I know you're talking about private institutions.
We are talking about private education. If, and by the way, taxes are paid by people who can afford it. It's that simple. Let me tell you, Sam.
Yep.
If today you have a Toyota Corolla, very cheap one, and I buy
maybe very
an
affordable.
Expensive machine.
Don't say cheap, maybe very affordable.
If I buy a machine, if I buy a machine, the amount of tax that I pay is not equal to what you pay. So if I'm taking my child to Brook House, and another person is taking his child to another small school, we should not pay the same in terms of taxes.
But that parent has already paid tax on their income, hasn't he?
Which parent? And who doesn't pay?
The parent who is taking a child to Brook House.
And who doesn't pay tax on his income?
So why do you want to go and tax?
If you're earning 10 million, I don't know, Sam, whether you're understanding my reasoning. If you're earning 10 million per month and you're taking your child to that expensive school, you are paying higher taxes. But there is someone who is taking his child or her child to a less expensive school and is only earning 50,000, is also paying tax. And by the way, there is equity. This person who is paying 50,000 probably is only paying 5,000. The person who is earning 10 million is paying, say, 2 million. The 2 million effects on the 10 million is the same as the 5,000 effect on the 50,000. Mm-hmm. That is what we call tax equity or equity in taxation. So you cannot come and tell me that because you are earning so much and you have already paid so much tax, you don't want to pay more. If you are deriving a service that should be taxable, it should be taxable. But we need to engage in a conversation. Sometimes we tax the lower income earners much more than we tax high income earners because of unfair tax practices. For example, I'll give you another one. Infrastructure bond. Infrastructure bonds, we know the reasons why they were exempted from tax, to motivate Kenyans with money to buy those bonds. You are earning 18% from a bond, and you are paying zero tax. Yet someone who earns very little money by selling fruits on the roadside pay tax. Is that fairness? It is not. There are taxes that we must discuss. Sometimes you may have a tax system that is so friendly to high-income earners and unfriendly to low-income earners.
So you punish them?
No, we're not punishing
them.
By the way, Sam, why do you call paying taxes punishment? You know,
because they've already paid their fair share.
You are soon getting persuaded.
No, Waziri, yes. I did not earn 10 million. Please, make me earn it.
No.
I'll pay the tax you want.
Of course.
It's not about
Sam, I'm
me.
praying for you, you earn 10 million.
It's not about me, really. Yes. It's just about fairness. Yeah. You're saying that because of some of the measures, making some contributions or deductions allowable, yes, you're putting money into the pocket of Mwananchi. But at the same time, you're going to tax entry fees into the national parks and national reserves, which have been VAT exempted now to standard rated, that is 16%. The services of tour operators, excluding in-house supplies, 16%. Hiring, leasing, and chartering of aircrafts, excluding helicopters, 16%. You're talking about specially designed, locally assembled motor vehicles for transportation of tourists, 16%.
Yes.
Don't you think you're putting money in the pocket, but also coming for it at the same time?
Sam, I'll answer you. Let me tell you, the best tax system should be tax that is targeting consumption. So if I want to buy, I should pay tax more than when I'm earning the money. The reason why income tax is popular is because it is easy to collect. But we should move to a system where we leave people with money to go and buy goods. We tax them at the point of purchase. You are doing two things. First, you will collect revenue, and it's assured revenue, and it is revenue that is that it is a tax that we are getting from people who can afford it. Two, you will also be promoting economic development of the country and economic growth and job creation. Because when people have money in their pocket and they buy goods and services, they are creating jobs out there. So when you go to the parks to enjoy the services of the park, why can't you pay tax? More than me who cannot afford it, and I stay at home.
No, in the spirit of promoting domestic tourism, but now you're taxing
it. I agree with you, Sam, but that was necessary when the tourism sector needed that serious intervention. As we speak, tourism sector in this country has developed to some level. So we shouldn't continue subsidizing, because when you people when we go to the parks and enjoy those services, we are simply subsidizing. And who is subsidizing that? The fishmonger. That person who is selling fish along the shores of Lake Victoria is paying for me to enjoy the services of going to Nairobi National Park to see wild animals.
Okay.
I should pay for it myself because I earn enough money to go to Nairobi National Park. And that person who is simply struggling along the shores of Lake Victoria should not subsidize me.
All right. The last question, PS. How much money are you expecting to raise from these amendments?
Yeah, I think these proposals, as CS has said, are meant to address equity and fairness, but also we are seeking to raise additional revenue. So you will see areas like VAT apportionment, for instance, that threshold that is there, we are seeking to remove, so that anyone who has goods that are enjoying that are zero rated,
right,
beyond 90%, they don't claim 100% because this has been abused. So we are seeking to remove that, and I think that is going to give us some yield, We are also going to apply excise of 5%, excise tax of 5% on coal, and we expect to raise that. So in total, we expect around maybe about between 150 to 178 billion.
178 billion.
Yeah. This is much lower than the 344 that we lost.
So PS, is this just a finance bill in a different name?
Well, it is not a finance bill, but we are not going to run away from raising revenues to finance our nation. I think we have an obligation to make sure that when we pass a budget, we make sure that we finance it. Already, we have expenditure pressures to the tune of almost 100 billion so far, coming from university students, funding model, many other pressure points, especially on the education and social sector.
Okay.
And those are the critical areas of government. Any government that exists must ensure that that's done. So we must make sure that we raise sufficient resources to fund those the expenditures.
So when do you want this passed?
That is now in the hands of Parliament, but as soon as possible.
No, tell me what that is. I mean, you have targets. You need to pay university funding model, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the matter is in Parliament. We don't control Parliament.
Chairman, when should you have these bills passed?
So thank you, Sam. The 4 amendments bill were published on the 1st of November. They'll go for first reading, probably tomorrow, Wednesday, or latest Thursday of this week. We're going to put adverts now. When now they land into Parliament during first reading, then they become properties of Parliament.
Okay.
We are going to publish the dates for public participation. We have to give a notice. Usually it is between 7 and 14 days notice. So at the expiry of the notice, once we receive the memoranda from the public, then we'll call for sittings, and as we look at also the written submissions. Thereafter, the committee will retreat to consider the views of the public and then present the report to the House during second reading, then go to the committee of the whole.
All that takes you to when?
We go on this recess starts on the 5th of December.
Yeah.
National Assembly is going on recess on 5th of December. So if all systems go, then we anticipate that we should be done with the process by the 5th of December. And again, this also depends on the magnitude of the views that we receive from the public on public participation.
So by Christmas, this should be in operation?
Sorry?
By Christmas, this should be in operation?
And especially because some of the things, for example, reducing the pressure.
No, we are winding up, Chairman.
Yes, and also, especially for reducing the pressure on people's pay slips, it is very important some of these amendments are passed. On things like amnesty, it's also very important that Kenyans are able to access this amnesty as fast as possible.
All right. 5th of December is 20 days before Christmas. Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies, for making time for us. Humphrey Wangata from the KRA, Dr. Chris Kipto, PS National Treasury, Waziri John Mbadi, National Treasury, Christine, thank you so much for joining us, as well as Kuria Kimani from Molo, but also the chairperson of the Finance and Planning Committee. And yourselves, thank you so much. Maybe put our hands together to appreciate everyone for being here and actively participating. For those that were not able to ask the questions, it was not intentional. It's just that we started this conversation yesterday. It's now Thursday. We cannot have a conversation across 2 days. My name is Sam Gituku. Thank you so much for watching. This has been JK Live from Daystar University. Good night. See you soon.
All right, thanks so much, Gituks. Great show, great panelists. Here's a gentle reminder, JK Live is powered by Safaricom. And now to some exciting news. Safaricom is celebrating you, the millions of Kenyans who have been incredible partners for the last 24 years. Every call made, every connection formed, and every service provided is thanks to you. Now, as a way of showing this appreciation, all new Safaricom home fiber customers who get connected from the 30th of October to the 23rd of November, and all existing customers who upgrade to a higher package before the 23rd of November will enjoy a 25% discount off their Safaricom home fiber plan. Asante kwa miaka 24 kutoka Safaricom.